we don't miss anything good.
Yeah,
We don't want to miss it.
Oh my gosh. No, I had a friend over for a podcast, and I had it
Mhm.
recorded and my computer lost half of it. So like that is like my worst fear in the whole world, is like to do like this epic interview
And you
and then
lose.
lose it. So I'm always like super, super careful about
Yeah.
recording now.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like you're pretty good with technology, or do you feel like it's sort of, mm, you know, uncomfortable? Because I am so uncomfortable with all of it.
It's a learning curve for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I have like a little sound box next to me, like, so I can play with levels in my ears, because I
Mhm.
had no idea how to do it for, I would say, my first 2 or 3 interviews.
Yeah.
So I had to
That's
play around and figure that out. And I just got like a light circle, so that's above me, because it's so gloomy this morning that there's like no
yes.
light. So I was
Yes.
like, I have all this random stuff now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely a learning curve. I've had to Google stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy because I feel like with quarantine and everything, you know, at the kind of like a similar time, like moving virtual,
Hmm.
everyone was finding these tricks and tips, like for electric, you know, lighting and cameras and microphones and all of that type of
Absolutely.
equipment that was really valuable information. Like, tell me how to look. Yes, show me the lighting.
I
In my
know.
way, please.
I know.
I know.
I would say like I kind of got into TikTok for a little bit, just because I was like, I have nothing else to do. What is this
Yeah,
TikTok? And I was like
yeah,
obsessed with it for like a month.
yeah, yeah. That's so. I haven't looked yet, but everyone
Yeah.
says it is the
I
most fun.
never understood it. And then I just like kind of went in. I was like, oh, this is cute. People are really creative and funny.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. My kids do dances with their friends, and it
Hmm.
does. I mean, it entertains them for hours, and it's kind
Yeah.
of fun. You know, it's this
Yeah.
fun thing they do together, and but then
Hmm.
they know all these songs that I've never heard. You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I need to know the song. What
Yeah.
song is
What is this
that?
song?
Yeah, yeah. They're like, Mom, it's a TikTok song. I'm like, oh well,
Oh,
okay.
okay. Well,
That's why I don't know it.
I don't know what that means, but all right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I don't know. You want to get started?
Yeah, let's
All
do it.
right. I must say that like I was the last like week or so, especially the last couple of days, I was looking at your website and I started reading your blog, and like we were watching football last night and I started crying. My husband was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm just reading a blog." But
Oh my
it's
gosh.
your writing is amazing. So I just want to say, like, doing a little bit research before this talk, it was awesome to learn more about you, and to just kind of like read your inner thoughts and in your feelings and the process and everything like that. Like, not everybody is that open and shares that part of them. So that's really,
I
really cool.
appreciate that.
I love what you're doing.
I really appreciate that. It kind of shocks the hell out of me sometimes because I was so left brain for so much of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, when I sit down to write, a lot of times I don't know what I'm going to say. Actually, most times I don't know what I'm going to say. And
Really?
then it'll sort of come out. And I feel like it's this, like, I don't even know, like it, like something takes over my body and I write these words. And then afterwards I go back and read them and I'm like, yeah, I guess that is really how I feel, but I don't know if I could have vocalized it as well
Yeah.
as I can write it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of exhausting in the best way because I write it and it takes it out of me. Um, because it just, you know, you process all this stuff and there's so much to
Mm-hmm.
process in life right now. And so I have to really sort of set chunks of time aside when I do it because I know I'm going to have to go there wherever that place is
Yeah.
on that day, you know, and it's always different. And I use my dogs for a lot of the content because my kids are getting to the age where I don't always want to share stuff about them because I don't know if they really want that out there, you know,
Yeah.
and but the dogs are always good material, always, always, always. So
Absolutely. I'm a sucker for animals, especially dogs. Like anything about dogs, especially like the stories that you were telling, it was just like tear jerking, and just it warms your heart and it fills your heart up. And something just about like the like undeniable love of a dog. Like they just, no
yes,
matter what, they
no
love
matter
you.
what,
Yeah.
it's unconditional, and
Uh-huh.
they, you know, I think for me, I realized with the animals, like I, I think humans are complicated and we're layered and we're always in our heads with each other
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And with an animal, you know, you don't have to be on, you don't have to be talkative, you don't have to be feeling great or strong. You could be in bed all day, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you take them to the bathroom and feed them and give them water, they are so happy. They're
Yeah.
content. And
Yeah.
I think it's just like a break for us to just feel that unconditional, uncomplicated love.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of carries you, I think, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times when you're feeling emotionally down, physically down, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And you know what, with kids, there's so much pressure. Like, I don't want to fuck my kids up. These dogs, you know, like I
Yeah.
can feel them. They can be horrific. They can have horrible manners. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter as much.
Mm-hmm.
There's not the
Mm-hmm.
pressure of, you
Mm-hmm.
know, oh my God, they're not going to have manners when they grow up, or they're going to have this or that, or what am I doing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's nice. It's just a nice break.
That is nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot less pressure.
So much less.
Yeah, we have a dog and a cat, and we don't have any kids, but like I constantly think about that. I was just like, man, just like the littlest thing, like what if you like screw up a kid? Like I was like, the dog and the cat, like they're cool. They can basically handle themselves.
Right.
But I
Well,
just like that's the thing that scares me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like taking it a step further for me, I had my soulmate dog, Riley,
Riley. Mm-hmm.
who unfortunately passed 3.5 years ago. But he, you know, he came into my life at a very, really at this perfect time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he saw me through, you know, most of my treatments, saw me through the kids. He was there for all of it. And I think, you know, with the kids, they found so much comfort in Rye, and he just sort of, it's that connection that heals, because we give so much of ourselves to relationships, whether it be our friends, our family, our husbands, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one relationship in my life that just gave back. It just seemed to keep giving back, and it just kept me in the moment and out of my head with the fear and anxiety and all this stuff, you know, because he was just in that moment right there. He was good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was what I needed without even knowing it. And that, you know, animals are just so healing. They are so healing.
Yeah. A lot of the times my friends and I say like, we don't deserve their love. Like it's crazy the amount of love that they give. It's just, animals are incredible.
They
And
are.
it's a blessing throughout life.
It's true. And you know, especially the rescues. Riley was a rescue. And
Yeah,
you know,
ours
a
is
lot
too.
of the rescues will come to us and we don't necessarily know their past, but we know it was pretty bad. You know, and Riley, we ended up on a very, very random run-in years later, found a lady who did know Rye and told us his past, but we didn't know for a long time. And we knew he'd been he had burn marks all over his body. You could see his ribs. He was a Great Dane lab mix.
He was beautiful.
Dog. He was so pretty. Yeah. And we brought him home, and he literally stayed in a corner for 2 weeks. Didn't come out. He was never, you know, he had every reason to be angry or violent, but he was just scared.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks, he sort of came out of his corner, and that was sort of when it clicked. And I really thought a lot later in life. I thought if Riley can trust again, if after everything he went through, which I can't even begin to imagine, if he can trust and he can put his heart back on the line, you know, maybe it's safe for me to do the same. Because I think along the way I started losing trust in life a little bit. I think just with, you know, a cancer diagnosis and then having it come back again and having it come back again, it's sort of, I didn't feel safe to trust. And then Riley really, really helped me find that inspiration and strength to trust in really whatever's going to happen, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Dogs. Well, that's like actually, that's like, ours is a rescue too. I ask them all the time. I'm like, what was your life like before? Like, I just want to know, but this is kind of,
and it's kind of fun to try to guess, like, you know, maybe you don't like umbrellas. Wow, I bet. You know,
it's just funny. Like we tell a story for him sometimes. So we're so happy we have him. He's an older dog. He's the best. So we absolutely adore him. But this is kind of like the perfect segue. So, just do a quick introduction. Today I have Caroline Rose with me. She is the creator and the writer of Dear Riley Rose, and also a cancer survivor and fighter of a rare stage 4 non-Hodgkins lymphoma.
That's right.
Okay, I got that right. Okay.
You did.
And she reached out to me probably a month or two ago, and we've been corresponding. And I feel so lucky that you found me, the site, the podcast, and I'm just honored that you wanted to come on and speak, especially after seeing your website and all the speaking engagements that you've done, and how inspirational you are for cancer survivors and cancer fighters and families out there. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we kind of went off on a tangent earlier, which I love, though. It's kind of just a little bit more natural, a little less stiff.
Maybe more to come.
Yeah, exactly. So from here, I'll just kind of let you tell like a little bit about your story. Like I read your intro on your website, just kind of how you found your cancer, how you're diagnosed, and a little bit of the journey, and we'll kind of just go from there.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Well, it was in 2004. And I was 27. I was living in Los Angeles. I was in med school at USC. And at the time, I was in the very best shape of my life. Hands down, no doubt about it. I was a big marathon runner. So I just ran my 7th marathon. And I think I ran 3 that year I was diagnosed. I think I did Boston in April, New York in November. Is that right? Oh, I guess 2 years. And then San Diego was in June. I think that was right.
Yeah.
And then we also, my husband and I, started to get into triathlons. So we just completed the LA triathlon, which was our 3rd Olympic distance, I want to say. Okay. And so my life was just very structured. I loved control, and I loved to have my every minute of every day kind of mapped out and regimented, and I studied hard. I ran hard. I was not a lot of fun to be around. I'll say that. But, so my brother is a big mountain climber, and he had come to me and said, "Hey, do you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa with me over Christmas?" And I thought, yeah, that's amazing. So he said, "Look, you've got the endurance, but you've got to work on your strength." So I found a guy, worked with him, lifting weights. He gave me a big 45-pound weighted vest and said, "You need to go do the Santa Monica stairs, up and down 10 times, then go 12 times, then go." And that's what I did. I loved to take directions, and I loved to, I was very, very type A. And so in those, I guess that probably 3 months, I had really been working on the strength. And I definitely, in retrospect, my neck was really, it was bigger. And I thought, that is so cool that the muscle comes on that fast. And I remember putting on deodorant and feeling big lumps. But again, it just so perfectly coincided with the training.
With being sore.
It was like a no-brainer. Like, I was proud of this. And so I never, ever, ever had one symptom, never. And I wish I had, because I think it really scares people. And it scares me that there really were no warning signs other than the physical appearance changing. So a month before Africa, my brother and I came back to our hometown of San Antonio, and my dad is a doctor in San Antonio. And so he had set up the blood work, the pre-Africa blood work, vaccinations, all that. Went in, did the blood work. My dad calls and said, "Hey, there was this mistake. There's your platelets are at a life-threatening level. I know that's not right. Come back and we're going to redo it." So I went back, redid it. And my dad growing up, my brother and I talked a lot about this. We cannot remember a time he has ever canceled a surgery, ever. He's a brain surgeon. Oh. And he doesn't cancel. He just does it. There's nothing in the world that would make him cancel a surgery. And he called me and said, "Do not go to get the vaccinations. You are actually going to go meet Dr. So-and-so, who's a hematologist, and I canceled my surgery and I'm meeting you there." And that is when I was like, oh, this is not good. So we went, I met my dad, and the hematologist, the trained eye, looked at my neck and he said, "How long have those lumps been in your neck?" And I thought, oh, thank you. Really, I was taking it as, yeah, exactly, patting myself on the, like, thank you so much. But he spent about 2.5 minutes examining me. That's all it took. And he asked me to come across the hall. My parents were there, and he said, this could be a virus, but I really strongly believe this is lymphoma. And my dad started crying. I think I'd only ever seen him cry once before when he lost his mom. And I didn't know what lymphoma was. I just wasn't sure. And, he kind of said cancer, blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of people feel this when they're first diagnosed. You're like, no, it's not, there's no way. And so the next morning we had a lymph node removed. It came back that afternoon. Yes, it was a non-Hodgkins lymphoma. I think it was a B cell follicular. It had a longer name. Okay. That was very unimportant to me at the time. I just thought, I can't even process this. I mean, I think a lot of, people relate to that. And so we went through Thanksgiving, a couple of days, went to MD Anderson the next week, took a week to do all the stage testing, and met with the doctor. And she said, it's everywhere. She said, it's stage 4, it's in your stomach, your spleen, your bone marrow. And I think I asked her, in fact, I'm sure I asked her, will this interfere with my finals for med school? Because it was coming, finals were the first 2 weeks of December. Mm-hmm. And I remember my dad again looked at me and he said, you're not going back. And she wanted to start chemo the next day because I guess it was a very fast growing, very aggressive form of lymphoma. And so they didn't even want to wait a day or 2 or 3. So we started right away. And I should also say, when I was first diagnosed in that appointment, she said, we can treat you, but we cannot cure you. Your cancer does not have a cure. And I thought, I kind of processed all this and it was all sinking in, and it took a while. Like I had to get home and I had to really kind of process all this. And I thought, all right, so I'm getting ready to battle a cancer that doesn't have a cure, that they can treat, but they can't cure. The goal is to get into remission to then wait for it to come back again. Like this was a very hard thing for me because again, at the time I was so driven. I was so type A. I wanted a goal. I wanted to achieve it and I wanted to move on, and I felt so out of control. I felt so just overwhelmed and lost. And I think that night I really was struggling and I went into we were at my aunt and uncle's house in Houston, and I went into one of their bedrooms and I just sat in the corner and I just broke down because I didn't want anyone to see me breaking down because I still wanted to be strong for everybody. And my uncle came in and he said, at the time he was involved with MD Anderson, and he said, I've just been in meetings, this week, last week with these doctors, these top researchers, and there's so much research happening. There's so many drugs being worked on, developed, you cannot think of this as, well, I can't find a cure, so what's the point? You've got to look at this as you do the best option available to you right now. You do whatever you have to do to live another day, live 5 more minutes, just get through, buy time. Because then when your cancer does come back, when you do need another treatment, chances are really high another treatment will be available. And that made sense to me. I thought, all right, I can do that. I can buy time. And so that's what I did. And I got through those 8 rounds of chemo, went into remission. And my husband and I then got married, moved to Santa Monica. And that's when I found Riley, because I was in this weird place of, I know I can't go back to school. I don't think I could go back to work because I'm just waiting. And I wanted it to come back because I was ready to do the bone marrow transplant, which may be curative, may not, they weren't sure, but it was our best shot. And I thought, let's do this. Let's do this now so I can get back to a life, So that's when I found Riley, and he really became my life, my project. My job was rehabilitating him, helping him walk again, helping the muscles strengthen, took him to the beach and the ocean and threw balls into the waves until his legs were strong enough that he could walk. And then we went to the dog park, and then he started running, and that's what we did. Yeah. And then the cancer came back. about 5 months after we got married, 5 or 6 months after we got married and after we found Rye. So we went to Houston again. I did my first bone marrow transplant. It was very difficult. I mean, it was not an easy treatment. I was inpatient for about a month, and then you stay close to the hospital and come in every day for about 2, 3, 4 months. And I really thought at the end of that, I really believed that was it, because I did the transplant. It was a success. I left Houston really not taking a ton of medication. I was weak, but I knew I could kind of rebuild my strength and regain a good life, a good quality of life. Mm-hmm. So we went back to Los Angeles, and right after my husband and I had gotten married, we froze our embryos because we'd been told that fertility post-transplant was going to be really difficult. And we didn't really have time to plan for that, I think, because it was all moving so fast. And so we froze embryos, and we just didn't know the quality of them, but it was the best we could do. So we froze them. So when I did my bone marrow transplant, we knew we already had those embryos frozen. So a couple of months after we came back to Los Angeles, we transferred an embryo, and that was our daughter. The first one took, and that was her.
That's amazing.
And it was amazing. I mean, it was truly amazing.
Oh my God.
And then they had told me a natural pregnancy was pretty much impossible. Mm-hmm. And it shocked the hell out of us. But then my son was actually a natural pregnancy, and he was born almost 2 years to the day after my daughter was born. And so everyone was just, I mean, every doctor, every person, of course, I was terrified that he was not going to be healthy because he'd been exposed to all that chemo during the transplant, and I mean, healthy as can be. And
miracle baby.
So yeah, that was a big one for us. But I think that I always say that's kind of my backstory, and then my real story starts when Tommy, my son, was 5 weeks, and my daughter Ellie was 2, because I, just had a baby, and I was sort of just in that phase of life where it just, you're kind of like, what is going on? And you've got these kids, and my stomach was sort of starting to go back to normal. And I remember one day I just looked in the mirror, and I saw these 2 huge lumps sort of down like in the groin area. And I thought, oh my God. And I knew exactly by that point, I knew exactly what it was. And I emailed my doctor with the red urgent flag, and he said, come straight out. Was it City of Hope? Followed me in Los Angeles, and yes, they did a CT scan, and sure enough, like it had wrapped around my spine during the pregnancy. So the back pain that I, naturally attributed to the pregnancy was actually the cancer. So long story short, we ended up going straight into some really intensive chemo at City of Hope for about 6 months. And then I think I had double pneumonia at the time, and we had to I think they had to send a plane to get us from City of Hope to MD Anderson, because during this time, my doctor at MD Anderson called and said, you're never going to believe this, but there is a new clinical trial out that is so promising. And this is brand new. And it's exactly what my uncle had predicted.
Uncle.
And
oh my God.
I mean, it is exactly, and it took a couple years, but I mean, he said there's 68 people, and I can get you in, you're number 66. And I said, let's do it. And it was risky as hell. I think there was a 40% mortality rate. But of those of us that got through it, and that was, by the way, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Just the chemo was so different, so much stronger, so much more chemo, such a longer length of time. I was in the hospital almost 2 months. And, through all of this, I know my kids are at home, and I know other people are raising them. But I couldn't, it's just, you really had to go into this mode of just self-care and self-preservation. And it came with a ton of guilt. It came with a ton of just feeling like a really horrible mom, horrible wife, horrible friend, all of it. And even though logically, you're not, you still feel it. And I think that was the hardest part for me, the emotional toll, I think.
Okay.
Um, but we got through it. That was 10, this past July was 10 years. So it's been
Wow.
10 years and I've been in remission ever since. So,
Congratulations.
well, thanks.
That's
Thank you.
incredible. Like
Yeah.
and that's really the great thing about technology and science and the the world. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. There's always research, and
Yeah.
your uncle, like, that's the best thing he could have said to you, especially being of a logical brain. You're like, I need a
Yeah.
goal and I need to get there, and
Yeah.
that's what it was. Like, just get there a couple more years and that will be something
Yeah.
better. And
Right.
uh,
It really was that, taking it down to these tangible things that you're like, okay, that I can do,
yeah,
that I can, it just makes sense. And I think through a lot of the speaking I've done, depending on the audience and the topic, I've told some different stories, but the one that I have found really resonates, and now I kind of try to include it, was there was at one point in my second transplant, there was a moment where it was one of my last chemo days, and they bring the chemo in about 4:30 in the morning. And it was the day that I really said I was done. I told, it was nurse Jan was the nurse's name. And I told Jan, I said, I don't want it. Please leave. I'm done. I'm done. And I knew what I was giving up. I knew the kids. I knew Riley. I knew my husband. I knew all of that. But it's like, it wasn't enough. It had been such a fight and such a struggle. And I couldn't do it anymore. And, my husband's there begging and please, please. And I remember Jan sat down and she looked at me and she said, okay, I get it. I get it. But can you just give me 5 minutes? Can you give me 5 minutes? And she said, if you can, squeeze my hand. And so I could do that. So I squeezed her hand, which gave her time to hang the chemo and fix the IV pole and all that. And then she looked at me and she said, can you give me 5 more? And I was like, yeah, I can give you 5 more. And so that's sort of what happened. It just went 5 minute intervals and we got through it. And obviously, we kept getting through it, but I keep going back to that so many times. I even use it with my kids. Like, if they come home upset or what, I'm like, I get you're upset. I really do see that. Is this going to be a big deal in 5 minutes? It might be. Yeah. Okay. Is it going to be a big deal in, 5 hours, 5 days, and you kind of keep expanding that out. And it's like, oh, I guess it really won't matter in 5 hours because I'm already going to be at so-and-so's house and I'll have forgotten about it. And it's like, all right, well then that puts it all in perspective in this manageable thing that I have found applies to most everything in life.
yeah, small goals, because
Small
a big
goals.
goal or like something big in front of you is extremely daunting. But if you can break it up
Yeah.
into little nuggets, then it's like, okay, I can
Right.
do that. I can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I read you had that story on your website in the About Me section. And that was the first part that I started crying. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, you talking about
Yeah.
Riley and dog equals God. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a beautiful story. And I'm glad you include that in your talks, because it really does resonate. Yeah.
It does. And I think the other thing um, that I kind of tack onto that is I've had a few people sort of, after talking about that or reading it or hearing it, kind of come to me and they're like, gosh, like, you're a hero. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. No, I'm not. And I'm not just being humble or whatever it is. I was not heroic. I made a choice. I made a choice to go 5 more minutes, and then I made a choice to go 5 more minutes. And we all make choices every day. And life is hard. Life is a struggle for all of us. We have different struggles, but these are real struggles. And we all have a choice how we're going to do it and how we're going to handle it. And I think that is, I think Jan was the hero, but for me, all I did was make a choice. And I don't even know why I made that choice, because I know I wasn't doing it for anyone else because I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
And I think we all have that power. In fact, I know we all have that power.
Absolutely. Talking about, like, you know, uh, your husband, your kids, your dog, and like even like your family, your brother and your
Mhm.
parents and everything like that.
Mhm.
You kind of touched a little bit on it. How did fighting cancer and going through chemo and that trial and everything, how did that affect, I guess in your eyes, the impact of your family and your relationships?
Yeah.
Like during and after, like do you still like feel an effect of that, or?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, 1000%. I think for me that I think it had a different impact on every relationship. I think that my brother and I, we were close growing up. We weren't super, super close, but I knew he was my older brother, and I knew what I did know is that he was always there for me. He would always be there for me. That's what I knew of our relationship, even though, we fought and all of that. Well, when we found out that I needed a bone marrow transplant, they tested my family, and my brother turned out to be a perfect match. So he was my donor for both transplants.
What?
And the wild thing is, we actually have different blood types. So when I had the first transplant, I didn't convert all the way to my brother. So I had half of his, well, a little, it kind of stabilized at like 60-40 of his cells versus mine. And so I had a mixed blood type, which was wild. And sorry, how many dog barking?
No, it's all good.
Yes, come here. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I think for my brother, I think having that, it bonded us in this way that is so almost unexplainable. Like he literally saved my life. And he's not married, he doesn't have children of his own, but he looks at my kids like his kids because he doesn't want credit and he doesn't want all the thanks, but he kind of knows. And my kids know that Uncle Chad saved mom's life. They know in a simplistic, hopefully not too scary way, and they love my brother. And I don't know if it would be that deep had we not had that.
Mhm.
Now, I think the other relationships in my life, um, I think that I very much worried with my parents if they were so worried about me. I really worried. I didn't want them to worry. And so I really tried and still do try to be strong. And I try to not let them know if I don't feel great, or I try to not worry them really. So I've kind of found myself a little bit more closed down and shut off because I just want to put on a smile because I put them through so much worry. And that's on me. They, I think I used to be the kid they didn't have to worry about and the one that was going to go do big things. And I, I think in a way I felt I disappointed them. So I don't want to disappoint them anymore. And again, I know all that, in your mind, you can talk yourself off of it.
Yeah,
But
you're like, I know it's ridiculous, but.
Mhm. And then I think the most interesting has been with my husband. And we joke about it a lot, but it's still kind of this interesting dynamic. When we met, he was just the life of the party. Everyone loved him. And my friend said, he's never going to settle down. He's never going to be serious. Like, he's so smart and has so much potential, but he just loves life. He loves just, I could never get him to commit to anything, not even like dinner in an hour. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And, here we are. We just had our 15th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
And
congrats.
is he is the one now who's scheduled and who handles a lot of the finances, the house stuff, we've totally flip-flopped roles. And he'll say to me, hey, do you want to go to dinner tonight? And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna be feeling. And so we really have had to flip-flop that.
Yeah.
And I think he has told me that in the past he felt so out of control, I think, watching me go through treatment, that I think he just really unintentionally and tried to control what he could control.
Mhm.
And so, he created a financial spreadsheet because that he could see. He scheduling appointments he can check. So I think he really needs that. whereas I used to and don't anymore. So it's a very odd flip flop. And the people that knew us back in the day and see us today, oh my gosh, we just can't believe you two. Like, what happened to y'all? Y'all just flopped, you know. But I understand why. But it became, he sort of became my caretaker, literally, like even still. And we just try to balance all that to not have it be too much of him taking care of me, because I don't think that's very healthy for a relationship.
Yeah. How, because I literally last week just realized how much, even though like thyroid cancer like is so easily treatable and everything like that, I didn't realize how much it affected my husband. Like
Yeah.
in my brain, I was like, I got this, it's fine. Like it's going to get taken care of. Like we're going to do everything we can and, take the thyroid out and all these things. And like, it was a quick process. So like for me, I barely had a chance to process it. I had no idea that it affected my husband so much. And like last week, I'd never seen him cry before and he cried. Sorry, honey, if anybody's listening to this, but I was just like, oh my God, I had no idea. And did your husband do any like sort of, I guess, going to talk to somebody, or was that something that you guys worked with together, or?
I think that, let me try to remember. I feel like we went together at first. I think I've been in therapy. I can't remember when I started, really. I think after I was diagnosed. I want to say maybe around after maybe after the first transplant. I think I was really kind of regularly in therapy. And I think that's when we started seeing someone together, because I think in retrospect, we were both struggling with this role reversal, but we weren't aware of it yet. And I had been really unaware of the impact it had on him, because I was so consumed with myself and my own healing and health and all of that I didn't mean to not realize, but I didn't. And he didn't want to be weak around me because he didn't want me to worry. And so we had this, we had to sort of stabilize in life before we could really open up about it to each other and feel safe doing it, where we wouldn't rock the other person to the core or make them feel guilty or like they'd done anything wrong, And then I think maybe after the second transplant, at some point, we started going individually. And I thought that was actually the coolest shift I saw, because I think we each had a person that was a safe person that we could really. Sometimes I don't like to admit when I'm wrong. Okay, I do not like to admit when I'm wrong. That's something I'm working on. And I really have a hard time admitting when I'm wrong with my husband. So in my individual therapy, I could really dive into that. Like, why can't I just tell him that I was wrong? And then I could sort of take that and go back into our relationship. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I see it coming. I was wrong. I'm going to have to tell him I was wrong. So here's what, and vice versa. I think he had things, I think we both had a lot from childhood. And I think we both had a lot through all the cancer. And it really gave us these tools to work through this resolution, because it changes you. I mean, these diagnoses, these huge health issues, they change you. And you almost have to really relearn who the other person is on the other side, and if you're not growing and if it doesn't change you, I think it's okay that you change, but you just have to make sure that whoever's in your life that you want to keep in your life, that y'all stay on that same path, even if you're both changing. You just don't want to go apart. You want to just keep staying together. And I think being really open and honest about the changing, and maybe your priorities change, maybe, your hopes and dreams and where you saw yourself in the future. And that can be scary. I have a very hard time saving for retirement. My husband works in finance for a living and really loves a good retirement plan. And he loves like putting all that there. And I mean, he knows this. I say it to him all the time. I say, I don't think I'm going to be here for retirement. And I'm not being negative, and I'm not being um, morbid or overly dramatic. I know what my body has had, and I know the treatment, and I know I've had 186 full body CT scans. I know the amount of radiation I've had. The chances are really high that something will come up and I will have a shortened lifespan. So it's hard for me to take that, let's say $100 and put it in a retirement account for this delayed gratification way in the future that is totally uncertain, versus, but we could use that and take a trip, go to dinner, whatever it is, and have a family memory made now. And I'm here and I'm healthy and I'm good. So let's do that now. So that is really our struggle, is balancing that, living in the moment, which sounds so awesome and glamorous. Oh, yes, like live like you were dying. How awesome would that be? Well, but we still have responsibilities and bills and kids, and I still have a schedule. I got to get them to school. I can't just say, hey, family, we're going to go fly to Disneyland today. And actually, I did more when they were younger, but you have to balance that. And so, with his increased need for control, because of what he has felt so out of control in terms of my health, with my increased, deep desire to really do things now and create memories now, that's really where we have tried to work to find a common ground.
Yeah, that's got to be a difficult fine line to dance on. Just because I haven't read it yet, but I did see you had a blog post about that. So I'm looking forward to reading more about that, just because like you're saying, you're being realistic, but you're not trying to be morbid. So it's a fine line, but it
is. And I think a lot of us walk it, it's true that anyone could have, God forbid, a horrible accident today, or but I think when anyone has personally received or has a loved one who's received any sort of life-changing news, and your life literally is changed in a second, I think we're all, I think it's a gift in a lot of ways. I think we appreciate things. I think our priorities change. A lot of people say it, and it's true. I mean, I don't know if I would take any of it back. The as hard as it's all been, it's been so beautiful at the same time. But I think it's just the way we view life, and I think see life, and it is not a guarantee. It's not, I don't feel robbed of, the years that I may not live. I feel more grateful to have lived the years and the days that I have been able to. Yeah. And so it's sort of that reverse viewpoint in a way, that I think you either sort of understand that and can really feel it, or you're not quite there. And either way, it's okay. It's just, it's a nice thing when you get to the point of feeling really grateful every day, because you're here.
Yeah.
We're all here.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of too, like, although how shitty 2020 has been, that 2020 has been an interesting blessing for everybody. It's definitely made them slow down. Everybody appreciate what, a day-to-day basis, like what they have in their lives, their blessings and everything like that. And it's just really, I think it's forced a lot of people to change their perspective on life and like what's important to them. And it's just like, that's just like a little nugget of what somebody with a terminal illness has, or a cancer diagnosis has. And it's just like, it really makes you appreciate what you've got going, and how are you going to take advantage of life, especially when things open back up. Like, I'm so excited to travel.
Right. I know. And I think that it's kind of been I've compared quarantine a lot to like when I went through the transplant. It's like everyone's wearing a mask. Oh my God, the mask and glove, or stay away from people, stay away from germs, and so it's almost where I'm like, oh, now y'all see what it was like. But I think that we all had the world turned upside down, and it was scary. We didn't know what was going on, and now here we are. I think it's been really cool to hear. Maybe it's taken this time for all of us to get a little perspective, like, oh, the things we miss. Like, we are never going to say, like, oh, I can't believe I have to go on that trip. Like, we're so excited. And it's almost this collective appreciation that the world has now. You know, it's not just certain people that have had certain experiences. We have all been in this together.
Yeah.
And I hope, I really believe and hope that is the good that's going to come out of this for all of us, you know. And I think as much tragedy and suffering and pain and loss of life that there has been, I would have to think if I'd been in that position where I had really suffered a personal tragedy through all this, I would want it to count for something, you know. I would want to make some sort of fucked up sense over the death or the loss or the sickness or whatever they may have experienced with COVID and all of it. And I would maybe hope that if the world emerges as a kinder or a more accepting or loving or appreciative place, that's something.
Yeah.
At least that's something.
Yeah, me too. I hope that for the world too. It's been, especially in the United States, it's been a very tumultuous time, and you know, like you hoping for the best of, you know, people learning and being a little bit more gracious and kind and patient. And I think for the most part, a lot of good has happened. But you know, I think we have a long way to go, but
we do.
It's a process. Yeah. But so I guess like going forward with like being 10 years in remission, being more of like a type A logical person, going into writing and creativity, like how did that evolve? Like how did you just like start writing and like speaking and just being so like beautifully eloquent in your writings? You're welcome.
You know, I swear it was all Riley. Through him, we started going to the Brentwood Dog Park years ago.
Yeah.
And I met this group of friends. Oh, is that? Yeah.
No, Brentwood's so nice. They used to be part of
nice.
It's gorgeous.
So nice. We lived in this little part. Yeah, it was just beautiful. And we met this very motley crew. I mean, we came from all walks of life, but we all met there at 7 a.m. every single morning. And we really got to be close. And one of those ended up, we just really stayed to be very close. And she is a writer. Her husband's a writer. And she's now sort of evolved into like a life coach / writing coach. She edits things. So she would hold retreats, and she was my friend who really taught me the art of going deep in a conversation and not staying on the surface, and the beauty that you can find in people when you really ask the right questions and you really listen. You know, you really listen to what their answer is and try to understand their point of view. So I just loved her, and I started writing because she asked me to write some things down, and I don't like to journal, and I didn't like it, and she knew it, but I did a little bit. And one day I wrote a letter to Riley, and he was still alive, and she read it, and she called me, and she was really emotional, and she said, that was something, and I'm telling you, you need to write this, whatever this is. And it turned into be a book, and it took about a year. But it's one long love letter to Riley. And it's sort of, Riley was there through so much, you know, monumental stuff, like the big stuff. He was there, and he was that silent strength and silent supporter. And so in my talking to him, it was so truthful and so honest, because I never worried about saying anything that would hurt his feelings. If I was talking to someone else or just writing in general, I was always so aware of, like, you know, how it was going to be perceived or whatever it was. And so I think through that and through writing it and finding how therapeutic it was for me and how much it helped me process everything and make sense of everything, it was scary and emotional and difficult, but it was the coolest thing to see. It shocked the hell out of me, I'm telling you, because I was never, ever going to be a writer. but I really loved it. And then I realized, you hear people say like, if I'm not creating, I go crazy. And I'm like, oh, come on. And now I'm like, oh, I gotta go write, and so it sort of turned into this, and it's sort of, the speaking came, I think I started speaking for City of Hope, and then it sort of just grew from there. Then the events became larger, and the people I met would then contact me, and it just sort of took off from that. I just love that. That I do miss during COVID. I miss going and being in front of people in a room, and the energy and seeing the emotion and talking to people. That I really do miss. But I think through the speaking, I realized, someone asked me recently, how did you land on the message of hope? And I said, well, I didn't. That was never what I thought my message was. But after I would speak, what I realized was the common theme when people came up to me afterwards was, you gave us hope. You gave us hope. That story gave us hope, or whatever it was. And I thought, it's pretty cool, and it just sort of kept, and I thought, okay, I've got to listen to that, and I've got to honor that, and I've got to stick with that. And I think definitely right now, but I really think always people need hope. I think no matter what your situation, no matter what you're dealing with, you may be so happy in life, you're just rocking it, but you're still gonna need it, or do need it, and you don't realize it. Everyone needs it. And, I tell people that may call me, or maybe they were recently diagnosed, or a loved one or a friend, I say, I am happy to talk to you. I will talk to you all day long, but your story is going to be your story. You can talk to someone who was diagnosed with your exact type of cancer, and they have the same doctor, but it's in a very weird way, like a pregnancy. People get pregnant and they have a baby, but no story is the same. Maybe the way you got pregnant, or how you felt, or how the baby came. There's so many. Everyone has a different story around that. So make it your own. And if you heard a story that didn't have a great ending, or was pretty horrific, that is that person's story. Make it your own. Do this how you want to do it, because you can do that. That is your choice. To try to do it your own way. And through that, maybe your ending is going to be a hell of a lot better. And that's where that hope comes in, because you got to have hope to have, the vision of a successful outcome.
Yeah. Wow. That was really inspiring. I couldn't help but think when you're talking about it, life isn't a straight line. It has its ups and its downs, and it's kind of the same thing. Throughout life you do have hope, and then it may waver, and like you were saying, you do have a choice, and you do have control of how that outcome can be and what you can do with it, not necessarily the outcome, but
right.
That's really great that you're teaching people this, and you're reminding people of this. And sometimes that's what people just need. They don't need they don't necessarily need to be told what to do. It's just they just need to be reminded, you write your own story, and what can you do with this X, Y, or Z, what's handed to you,
right. And even if it's, even if it is not the outcome anyone wanted, I think then it's okay, well then what is the legacy? What is going to be remembered or said, and I think that's kind of cool too, and it's hope that's not tied up in a pretty bow that's like, oh, everyone's going to be great, but it's just hope that it changes form, I think, as everyone goes through life and everyone's journey. But I think if you really think about it, if you sort of strip down the layers, if we really want to be here and be an active participant in life and be vulnerable, because I think we have to be vulnerable to really get the most out of it all, then we have to have hope. Because if we're not hopeful, then we're not really putting ourselves out there. And if we're not really putting ourselves out there and really participating in life, I don't see the point. you know,
You're not really living.
you're not really living.
Wow.
Even if you have one day left on this earth,
Mm-hmm.
you're still here, you know, you still put yourself there and you want it to count. You want it to be good, as good as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
And that's hope.
Yeah. 100%. You touched on something a little bit ago, the legacy, and that's
Mhm.
kind of like a little bullet point that I have written down. And I was, the legacy of you and your journey. And what do you think Riley Rose's legacy is?
I think that, I think I'm proud. I say writing this book
Mm-hmm.
was honoring his life,
Mm-hmm.
because I think he was so much bigger than a dog or a story, or he was so much bigger. And I think Riley, I think his legacy will be love, trust, and forgiveness, because those are the three things that I believe he chose to do when he came out of that corner. And there was no reason for him to do any of that. He had every reason to stay in that corner. I would have stayed in that corner.
Yeah.
And I think to just see a creature have the courage and to try again, I think that is his legacy. And I think Riley lived his life. I think people that were terrified of dogs, there were countless examples, but they were scared at first. He was a large dog, Great Dane Lab mix, 140 pounds at his happy weight. And it was, whoa, but I can't think of a time that they didn't soften into him, and there was one story that I haven't told this many times, but we lived in Los Angeles. The kids and I used to go to Disneyland, a couple times a year. And Riley became a service dog probably halfway through his life. So he would go with us. And we were standing in line one morning and waiting for the park to open. And we'd been standing there for about 20 or so minutes. And Ry was on the ground. And I was talking to the kids. I wasn't aware of anyone behind us. And I remember hearing these like choked sobs. And I turned around and a mom was behind me and she was covering her face, and her son, I looked down, had his whole body on top of Riley. And, he was so large that it was kind of fun, but this boy was spread out on top of Riley. And which was absolutely fine. And I looked at the mom and she was so emotional, and she was just through tears. She said, my son is terrified of dogs, and he was severely autistic. And she said it was really something they'd been working on, because it was the fear of animals, but it was a deeper fear and something that was causing a lot of anxiety in her son. Mm-hmm. And so she said, he's never even been in the same room with a dog, and it causes him so much anxiety. So to see him literally on top of this big dog, it meant everything to her. I tear up every time I say that story.
I just got goosebumps.
It was, but that was Riley. That was just that dog. And so if I can try to carry a shred of that on, just love, forgiveness, acceptance, trust, I am doing that dog right. Like I am making him proud, because I've never ever seen a creature that had that power like he did, ever. He was a gift from God, for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say, real blessing. Like,
oh, yeah.
And the fact that you took the lessons that your relationship that he taught you, mm-hmm. and you're teaching these lessons, and you're living it, and you're carrying on his legacy and his spirit. And I think that's a beautiful thing too. Like you're not letting him die. Like he's still here.
Yeah.
You said it's been 3 years.
3.5.
What a good boy. He's so beautiful.
He was just, and I said the other day, I said to someone, I said, do you miss him? And I said, I'm to the point where I don't miss him, but I just feel him. Like, I just feel him so strongly, and I tear up every time I talk about him. And if they're not sad tears, they're just, it's just because I just feel him so strongly. And so I guess it's like I can't miss him because he's so yeah, so there.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. So what's next for you? Like I know quarantine is kind of weird right now. Are you doing any speaking engagements? Are you writing more?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm doing a few virtual, which
Okay.
is fun. You know, I think we've all had to adjust a little bit with the virtual,
Yeah.
but yes, definitely doing those. And then the book is in the process of publishing, so that's very exciting.
I'm super excited.
And it's, you know, I think back to what I was saying earlier, I think life would be a lot easier if I had a plan and a calendar and actually could write stuff out, but I just don't. And it's the weirdest. And so I don't know what's next. I think it's a scary but also really cool way to live. Again, shocks me because it's never been me, to kind of just trust that what's going to come comes, and what's meant to be happens, and I kind of live that way. So I don't know what's next.
That's exciting.
But it'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Well, I'm really excited for your book. I can't wait to read it. So I'm looking forward to it. I was looking for it and I was like, maybe it's not out yet. So,
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. I'll let
I'm
you know.
excited. I love nonfiction. I love to read, especially memoirs and
Yeah.
it almost, I know like it's a fiction book, but The Art of Racing in the Rain about, oh my God, anything about dogs, just,
I know.
I know I'm going to cry, but I'm really excited to read your book.
So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, is there anything else you would like to add? Like, I feel like this is a good part to ask how we can find you, your website, Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, you can go to, it's dearrileyrose.com. Same thing for Instagram. I think Facebook is the same. And I'm always happy to talk to anybody, or, you know, if I can be of any help, any service, I'm always here. Truly, truly.
Well, you're so amazing, and thank you for sharing this story with me and your thoughts and just how you evolved with it, and to be able to come out the other side with your outlook and in the light that you have inside of you is truly, it's beautiful and unique, and for you to be able to help impact others' lives and give them hope is really inspirational. So I really do appreciate you spending time with me. Like, I feel like, oh my God, how did I get you?
Oh my gosh, no. I mean, it's a gift. Whenever I'm able to do this, it is truly a gift for me, because this is, like I said, it's honoring Riley and what I've been through, my family. It's just honoring it, and hopefully, you know, hopefully it touches someone, but it really is. It's a gift for me, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I hope to be able to have you on again at some point, maybe after the book.
I would love that.
Yeah,
love that.
Yay. Good. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon and craziness of being at home. I saw a couple, a beautiful lab walking behind you. So you'll be able to go play with him.
To get on. He is such a little ham.
Little ham. He's beautiful. So yeah. Is he?
Yes. He's our big 100-pound lab.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We have Gus, and then our little pug, Axel.
Oh, little pug. Well, I hope he recovers well too, and he can breathe better and play with the lab.
Thank you. Yeah, he's now at my feet, chewing on a bone. So
I heard him snoring at one point. Adorable. No, it's quite all right.
Yes, that's what that noise was. It was not a pig.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll make sure to preface. I'll be like, "There's a cute little pug sleeping."
Absolutely.
Oh, sweet boy.
Well,
enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so
much.
You
too. I so loved this. I love to do it again.
Okay, great. I loved it.
So much fun.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch, and I will let you know when I officially post it, but I think it's going to be that third Monday in September, the 21st, I think.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's
Bye.
keep in touch.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll talk
Thanks.
soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.